Announced as part of a panel at GDC 2025, the Entertainment Software Association, or ESA, this week announced the Accessible Games Initiative, an industry-wide initiative backed by many of gaming's biggest publishers that may represent the biggest step forward in years for video game accessibility standardization. So, what is this initiative and who's involved? The Accessible Games Initiative is a collaboration started by Electronic Arts, Google, Microsoft, Nintendo of America, Sony Interactive Entertainment, and Ubisoft. Additional companies have already joined the initiative, including Amazon Games, Riot Games, Square Enix, and Warner Bros. Games. If you're someone who follows gaming accessibility news regularly, you'll likely already know that on PlayStation and Xbox consoles today, you can find accessibility tags on both consoles' digital storefronts. These accessibility tags are optional for developers to engage with, but provide game developers the tools to communicate to disabled players which common accessibility features a game supports, without that player having to search elsewhere to find that information. These tags, as they currently exist, are not standardized across the pair of console ecosystems, with each publisher having developed their own set of accessibility tags independently over recent years. The Accessible Games Initiative, by comparison, aims to create a standardized set of accessibility tags that can be consistently applied industry-wide. The idea is that disabled gamers will benefit from consistency in what naming conventions are used to refer to specific accessibility settings, and the standards that will need to be met to get those tags. And developers will benefit from knowing exactly what standards they need to meet to be able to advertise that they support a needed feature. Basically, by having consistent criteria and naming conventions, it's easier to know what standards to reach as a developer, and to know what a developer means when they promise an accessibility feature. At launch, the initiative has 24 tags spread across a number of common categories. Auditory features tags include chat, speech-to-text and text-to-speech, mono audio, multiple volume controls, narrated menus, stereo sound, and surround sound. Gameplay features tags include difficulty levels and save any time. Input features tags include basic input remapping, full input remapping, playable with buttons only, playable with keyboard only, playable with mouse only, playable with touch only, playable without button holds, playable without motion controls, playable without rapid button presses, playable without touch controls, and stick inversion. Lastly, visual features tags include camera comfort, chat speech-to-text and text-to-speech, clear text, color alternatives, large and clear subtitles, and clear text. While the number of tags available at launch is more limited than either Xbox or PlayStation's existing set of tag options, I do appreciate that there is a degree of transparency provided on the initiative's website about how each of these tags can be achieved, which clarifies they don't need to be dependent on settings inclusions. If a game, for example, is inherently accessible by design for colorblind players, it doesn't need a dedicated colorblind mode toggle option to be able to use the associated tag. I do have some light concerns about the broad nature of some of these tags, and questions about how they will be applied, such as whether a game will need both speech-to-text and text-to-speech support to get the chat speech-to-text and text-to-speech tag, or if only one of those being supported could earn the tag and cause confusion potentially for players. These are, however, only minor concerns right now, and I am sure that given time we'll see these answers play out. This is also a self-tagging system, meaning that while criteria exist to decide if a tag should be applied, we will need to see whether there is consistency in how these tags get interpreted and applied across publishers. The hope is that using a consistent criteria will, over time, produce consistent results in how games are tagged by different studios and publishers. The initiative doesn't override existing accessibility tag options being offered elsewhere in the industry, meaning that Xbox and PlayStation won't need to stop offering the additional accessibility store tags that they currently offer, under their own criteria. This is a standardized place to start, but groups within the initiative are still free to go above and beyond the standards set by the group. This is about raising the minimum bar of standardized tagging, rather than limiting the upper ceiling of that support. There is also no obligation for any of the publishers under the initiative to implement any of these tags. They're still optional to implement, with no timeframe set for their adoption. This is very much a statement of intent from the industry at large, but one that we'll have to see play out over time and trust that the people who've signed on to have intention to act upon in a reasonable timeframe. Lastly, Developers and publishers outside of the initiative are actively encouraged to make use of the tags themselves in how they discuss their own games. You don't have to be a part of the group organising the tags in order to take part in helping standardise language about accessibility communication. Taking a step back to talk about this from a personal perspective, I do believe this is perhaps the biggest moment of industry unity on gaming accessibility that we've seen in the 5 years that I've been producing episodes of Accessibility. As someone who at least once a year puts together an article about the steps this industry needs to take going forward to standardize accessibility, standardizing accessibility store tags across all of the major consoles and publishers has for many years now been something I've been advocating for. Nintendo's involvement in this initiative is great to see, as it gives me some hope that we might see support for accessibility store tags on the Switch 2 eShop later this year, which would get us to a place where all three major consoles support some form of accessibility tag feature on their digital storefronts. Additionally, seeing the inclusion of a playable without motion controls tag on an initiative that Nintendo is involved with is hugely reassuring, as mandatory motion controls have long been a critique of the company's releases, and this shows an awareness of that as a potential barrier that does exist in their software, that they're gonna have to at some point acknowledge a little bit. Furthermore, I would love to see these tags sometime in the future listed on physical game box back covers. There is precedent for this. Back in the 1980s, Atari game cases used to contain special features sections, with information such as if a game contained difficulty options. This sort of system would make a great basis for eventually listing accessibility on game cases at retail stores as well as on digital storefronts. This also moves us towards a future where, while still optional, more third-party publishers may take advantage of accessibility store tag options on consoles. While Xbox and PlayStation's first-party studios have been pretty good at utilizing tagging systems on their consoles, other publishers have been more hesitant to adopt that kind of support, and this does feel like a step in the right direction that might get us towards more of these publishers routinely using these tagging systems. Lastly, while these tags may be starting simple, I do believe that any amount of standardization of these tags industry-wide is an incredibly big step forward. It shows a willingness to collaborate, an understanding that some things are more important than competitive rivalries between companies, and a willingness to work together on matters of accessibility. It shows a willingness to recognize there are minimum standards we should be considering as an industry, and with those minimum standards set, we have room to grow from there. The hardest part of this whole conversation, I think, is standardizing a starting bar for accessibility conversations. From there, it's about raising that bar a little at a time, adding new tags and hoping to watch the industry rise to meet new standards as they're defined. It gives publishers a slowly increasing list of considerations, in a form that I genuinely believe will be for the overall benefit of accessibility in the industry. It may not be flashy news, like a new game being made playable for sightless players or a developer inventing a totally new accessibility option, but I genuinely believe that in many ways this is a more important update for our industry. Standardization is rarely flashy, but to me it's what truly represents sustainable industry progress.